Welcome, everybody. We don't have so many of our regulars because of the snow, like Donna C. isn't here to tell us the cell phone joke. So you have to turn off your cell phones, and I better check mine too. And we don't have our child care person, so hopefully, is it going to work out for you guys? Yeah, glad you're here. And one of the announcements is that Cerise, who's one of our wonderful musicians, is doing a concert tonight, and she sent out an email this morning that she is going to go and do it at the community center building, Ashland Community Building, you know, down by the park. With that, it should be wonderful. It's called Honey.
Sweet Wild Honey?
Sweet Wild Honey or something like that. A group of three of them doing world music songs. So 7 p.m. Come tonight. It'd be good to support her.
3 women, incredible voices.
3 incredible
Great.
musicians. Yeah.
By the way,
Okay, you have an announcement. Okay, Janine, go ahead.
Hello. All of you know me, I think. I'm the artistic director of the community theater here, and we have a holiday show that would be particularly of interest to Unity members. So just for you guys, I'm going to give away the play a little bit. This play, Greetings, was done in 1997 by Peter Alzado at Actors Theater and Talent, and then 99 Neil Donald Walsh directed it. Because it was such a hit in 97, they waited a couple years and did it again. And one of the characters, who's a 30-year-old, very, very developmentally disabled boy, gets taken over by a spirit entity who asks them to look at their lives a little differently. And so it's the challenge of a Catholic, working-class Pittsburgh family with a mission spirit in the living room. And it's a lot of fun. It's a great comedy. And I find it very, very respectful. It's not poking fun at that at all. It's using it as a tool to expand consciousness. And so if anybody has a place that they can put up a poster, I have posters. And I have a few little handbills that you need a magnifying glass to read. The show opens next weekend. It's Saturday night at 8, Sunday at 2, and then it does that again the next weekend, and the one after, so the 21st, 22nd, and the 28th and 29th. It's 3 Saturdays at 8, and the Sundays at 2, downtown at the community center. And I wasn't able, because of the weather, to get any of our tickets, but I can make you up a little voucher. Tickets are $15. So if you'd like to buy one from me, you can hand in that voucher, and they'll hand you the ticket at the door after the service.
Thanks for being here to tell us about it. Today, right after church at 1 o'clock at the Armory is the community gift swap. That means that you bring 3 gifts that you haven't bought, that you bring from your house, and then you appear there and you trade them with 1,000 people. And I don't know how many people, a lot of people, and you get some good gifts in return. So that's a fun thing happening this afternoon. And then no, they don't have to be wrapped. They're just things from that you have already, that you're trading. It's a really fun event. And then next Sunday, the next 2 Sundays are leading up to Christmas time together. And we have, in the morning of next Sunday, our wonderful Cerise is going to be there, and also Talia Rose with the harp. And we're going to do a real honoring of the Divine Feminine. It's that time of year. Mary, and it's the birthday of Guadalupe in Mexico. So it's going to be a wonderful Sunday, Divine Feminine. And then the following is our Christmas celebration on the 22nd. And we have David and Richard, and maybe Heather will be here. We have Alonzo and his dancing people friend. Yeah, and so we have dancing. And yeah, Alonzo's coming. He's been out of town, but he's back for a while, so excited that he can come. So spread the word that we're going to have 2 really great Christmas celebrations. Then we're also having a wonderful Christmas party, which our elves and reindeers want to talk about it again.
I wonder how she guessed that I wanted to make an announcement.
I don't know, I just imagined it might
So-
come with a hat.
So Francie would be proud of me for remembering the hat. She's the one that's been providing all of the costumes for our announcements, but she couldn't make it this morning. But our Unity in Ashland Christmas party is next Sunday evening at 7, so you could go to the show and still make it to the party that evening. And we'd love to have you sign up for, let us know what you'd like to bring. It'll help us plan a little bit if we know who's bringing tasty desserts, and we like some gluten-free ones and some healthy fruit things too. And then if you'd like to help, volunteer, we have lots of spots to accept volunteers, lots of ways to get involved. So I'll have a sign-up sheet at the back after the service, and you can talk to me if you have any questions. I'll look like this.
Wow, where'd that at? And Heather, you have an announcement?
Yeah, so speaking of Alonzo and Dancing People Company, there's going to be a wonderful performance and celebration Solstice Weekend that Dancing People Company puts on, featuring dancers, professional and community people, and local artists, and that's Solstice Weekend. And speaking of birthdays, I think Alan's birthday right here was yesterday.
Oh.
And Richard's is tomorrow.
Wow.
He didn't want me to say anything, but I did.
Good to know. Two of our longtime friends' birthdays. Yay. Oh, okay, well, now let's enter into our sacred space together. I have a poem from Rumi. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, it doesn't matter. Ours is not a caravan of despair. Come, even if you have broken your vow 1,000 times, come yet again, come, come.
Hear my call, sweet spirit, fill me with your grace. Help me know the way to grow into another place. Hear my call, sweet spirit, fill me with your grace. Help me know the way to grow into another place. Hear my call.
hearts call out to Spirit. Spirit calls to us. Come. Come to planet Earth. Come and be incarnated. Come and have this experience. Come and have that experience. Come. You're here because you've been called. And in this moment, I'd like you to imagine that at one time you may have been called to be here on earth in another form, as a very, very old tree. Imagine that like a tree, you had roots that stretched down deep, deep into the ground. Feel them right now. Feel those roots as you breathe. Let your roots extend deep into the earth, weaving around and among the rocks, touching underground springs. Even in this winter coldness, your roots extend very deep into the sustenance of the earth. Under you is all nurturance, making you strong. Feel how the earth always gives you strength and nourishment. The earth always sustains your life. The earth always supports your weight. The earth is your home. Feel her. Just as you're fully rooted in your body is rooted in the earth. You are supported, sustained, and nourished by the earth. Feel your roots, how they go down very deep, even to the core of the earth. Feel them stretching down into this core place where there's a magnetic connection moving between the magnetic core of the earth and your own center. Magnetic energy moving between you and the earth. Imagine as you breathe, it's as though you're breathing with the earth. As you inhale, draw up the earth's substance and sustenance. And as you exhale, release energy no longer needed into the earth. And she transforms this energy into nutrients. The earth breathes, you breathe. You breathe, the earth breathes. A continual exchange of replenishing energy. Feel your magnetic connection breathing, drawing up earth energy. It tunes you to the substance of which you're made. You are made of earth. Every molecule that comprises your physical being has been in other bodies, in rocks, in plants, in animals. Every molecule of which you're composed is of the earth and has been of the earth from the beginning of time. You, every molecule composing your body, has witnessed all of history. You are the earth. Feel the power of the earth energy inside of you. Everything that has ever happened before on this earth has been witnessed. You, in some form, have lived through all of history. The knowledge that is carried by the earth and by you as a part of her is awesome. All that lives returns to her. So let yourself relax. Relax into the support of the earth, knowing that she does always sustain your weight. As a big redwood tree, as a small human, the earth provides your body with a home. Feel yourself at home wherever you are, because you are of the earth, breathing with the earth continually. Earth energy continues to move through you all the time in this manner. Intend for this to be the case. Tell yourself that it is. When you have earth energy moving through you this way, you always remain centered, focused, and relaxed, present to all that is. Know that this is so. Know that this is so.
our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of the universe, a child of God. You playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that others won't feel insecure around you. We are meant to shine, as children do. We are born to manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just within some of us, it is within us all. And as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give permission for others to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. When we allow ourselves to exist truly and fully, we sting the world with our vision and challenge it with our own way of being.
Thank you, Debbie. Do you know who said that? Marianne Williamson. Do you know where she got it from? Nelson Mandela. He had that call upon his life, wouldn't you say? And so do you. So do I. We have a call, each in our own unique way, to that kind of brilliance, to change the world that we touch every day. Come, won't you? We're not a caravan of despair. We have these callings to fulfill. I'm not doing a children's blessing today because we don't have our child care person, but just to check in with the parents for a moment. Is that okay with you to have your kids remain here and be with us through the service?
I was planning on it.
Okay. Okay.
We're gonna go.
You're going to leave?
Yeah, it's a little more challenging for her
Okay.
to sit through a service, but it's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry that you have to go.
It's part of being a parent.
Yeah. Well, stay as long as you can. Oh, if you must. He bless you. The next poem that I have for you, there's several poems today in readings. And then we're going to be talking about one of my favorite theologian people of the 20th century, although she wasn't really a theologian. She was a person who did many different things, kind of like Nelson Mandela. Simone Weil, and her last name is spelled W-E-I-L, but it's said Weil, European way. So we're going to be talking about this Advent season that's upon us. In the Christian calendar, you know, Advent is a time of expectation and waiting. And Simone Weil wrote a book called Waiting on God. How many of you have ever heard of her or heard of that book? No? Well, I'm so happy to be able to introduce you to her. I found out about her when I was in college, and she wasn't very well known yet, but then she rose to more recognition, and then she sort of faded away again. So I'm really excited to bring some of her teachings to you today. When you hear that about waiting on God, we're going to be talking about waiting, and she talks about that the beginning of the spiritual path of true spiritual growth is patiently waiting with expectation. I thought this was appropriate for us this week as the events of the week unfolded because of celebrating Nelson Mandela's life. Talk about somebody who patiently waited with expectation and never lost sight of his vision. So that's what I want to be with us today about, is how do we do this? How do we wait through hard things, through the darknesses that come on earth and in our lives, all the way through to fulfilling our calling. So, a poem that was very important to Simone, that at a time in her life when she was feeling really down, she came upon this poem by George Herbert, who was a medieval poet. And this poem was one of the things that came into her ear as she was listening for some thread of hope to give her some inspiration to go on. And I'd asked Janine to read it for us. It's also another, I found this poem in college too, and it had that same effect on me. The poem is called Love by George Herbert.
Love bade me welcome. Yet my soul drew back, guilty of dust and sin. But quick-eyed love, observing me grow slack from my first entrance in, drew near to me, sweetly questioning if I lacked anything. A guest, I answered, worthy to be here. Love said, you shall be here. I, the unkind, ungrateful? Oh, my dear, I cannot look on thee. Love took my hand, smiling did reply, who made the eyes but I? Truth, Lord, but I have marred them. Let my shame go where it doth deserve. And know you not, says love, who bore the blame? My dear, then I will serve. You must sit down, says love, and taste my meat. So I did sit and eat.
The way of the heart. The way you went after.
So thinking about this concept or this feeling of waiting, it seems like there's been a decree of the heavens with all the weather, right? With everything canceled, and thou shalt rest and wait. And we always have warmth in our heart, right? Even in this coldness. So this song is called "Let the Way of the Heart." So let's stand up and sing it, and you'll probably recognize it as we get into it. Let the way of the heart shine through. Let the way of the heart, let the way of the heart, let the way of the heart shine through me. Let the way of the heart, let the way of the heart, let the way of the heart shine through me. Love upon love, love upon love upon love. All hearts beating as one. Life upon love upon love. Light, dance in the light of the sun. Sing it to each other. Let the way of the heart, look around. Let the way of the heart, let the way of the heart shine through you. Let the way of the heart, let the way of the heart. shine through you. Let the way of the heart, let the way of the heart, let the way of the heart shine through you. Love upon love upon love, our hearts beating as one. Light upon light upon light, dance in the light of the sun, dance in the light of the sun, dance in the light of the sun. One more. Dance in the light of the sun. Here comes the sun. Do-do-do. And he is coming out, isn't he, today?
Beautiful song. Thank you for singing it so beautifully. You can be seated. There's something going on here on planet Earth. And we're talking about you being a part of the earth, not just in this incarnation, but in many different forms. You being a part of this cosmos. You having a calling that is greater than you can even imagine in most moments. And from that poem that Janine read us, George Herbert was trying to get at that there is this love going on that is calling us, that is beyond any kind of love that we can hardly even know. But it has called us here to come and eat, to come and eat, to come and partake of life here on planet Earth, and to digest it, and to transform it. We're called here to fully partake. Well, someone else that we celebrate as having listened to the call, and really, she went for it. And because of that, she changed the planet. I'm going to have Sherry come and read this reading, and you'll know who we're talking about.
In the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, God sent the angel Gabriel to the Galilean village of Nazareth, to a virgin engaged to be married to a man descended from David. His name was Joseph, and the virgin's name, Mary. Upon entering, Gabriel greeted her. "Good morning. You're beautiful with God's beauty, beautiful inside and out. God be with you." She was thoroughly shaken, wondering what was behind a greeting like that. But the angel assured her, "Mary, you have nothing to fear. God has a surprise for you. You will become pregnant and give birth to a son and call his name Jesus. He will be great, be called Son of the Highest. The Lord God will give him the throne of his father, David. He will rule Jacob's house forever, no end ever to his kingdom." Mary said to the angel, "But how? I've never slept with a man." The angel answered, "The Holy Spirit will come upon you. The power of the Highest hover over you. Therefore, the child you bring to birth will be called Holy, Son of God. And did you know that your cousin Elizabeth conceived a son, old as she is? Everyone called her barren. And here she is, 6 months pregnant. Nothing, you see, is impossible with God." And Mary said, "Yes, I see it all now. I'm the Lord's maid, ready to serve. So let it be unto me, just as you say. Then the angel left her.
Well, we hear this from the perspective of history, looking back. But Mary, she was a young woman having this experience of being told, she's pregnant in a culture that stones women that are pregnant who aren't married. And that her son is going to be somebody that's going to have a kingdom and change the world in a really big way. Well, she knew in her day that they were awaiting a Messiah to establish a kingdom. So what a thought that this being coming through her could be this being. And as we know, it didn't all come about in the way that the world thought it would. So she had to wait. She had to wait through all the years of his life, and then she had to wait through the things that happened to him. And in a way, she had to wait a long, long time, maybe even until now, maybe even beyond now, to have the fulfillment of what the angel said to her. So Mary, of all beings, waited patiently, expectantly, for the vision that she was given. Heather has this beautiful song that she's written called Waiting.
Just a few words before the song. Every midwife knows that not until a mother's womb softens from the pain of labor will a way unfold and the infant find that opening to be born. Oh friend, there is treasure in your heart. It is heavy with child. Listen. All the awakened ones, like trusted midwives, are saying, welcome this pain. It opens the dark passage of grace.
I'm cold, I'm tired, and I am heavy. When will the time come when I am fully ready? Will I ever be ready? For a baby to be born to this world, he must lie waiting. And every tree on this earth, for the spring she must be waiting. And for the fruiting of the fallow land, we must lie waiting, waiting. Well, I'm cold and I'm tired and I'm heavy, but the time will come and I will be ready. I will be ready. I
Advent says to us that life is a continual process of waiting. Life is a continual process of waiting, waiting expectantly. We've got to be ready, like Heather's song says. Are you ready? What makes you ready? Staying awake and being ready to receive. I've asked Donna Marchetti to come and read a poem from David White. I love David White's poetry, and he's written several poems about waiting.
It must be that we are waiting for the perfect moment. It must be under all the struggle we want to go on. It must be deep down we are creatures getting ready for when we are needed. It must be that waiting for the listening ear or the appropriate word, for the right woman or the right man, or the right moment just to ourselves. We are getting ready just to be ready, and nothing else. Shall we listen? It must be that we are waiting for the perfect moment. It must be, under all the struggle, we want to go on. It must be deep down, we are creatures getting ready for when we are needed. It must be that waiting for the listening ear or the appreciative word, for the right woman or the right man, or the right moment just to ourselves. We are getting ready just to be ready and nothing else.
What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Are you waiting for peace in the Middle East? Are you waiting for peace at home, in your own family? Are you waiting for poverty to end on planet Earth? Are you waiting for the end of some destructive habit pattern inside of yourself that leads you to your own kind of poverty? Or perhaps you're simply waiting for more love. What are you waiting for? The late great Unitarian minister, Forrest Church, I don't know if you've heard of him or not, but I always admired him through the years, and he said, Advent is the season of waiting, and one thing it teaches us, however, is that we don't always get what we expect. Long ago, people were waiting for a Messiah. The people of Judea got a child instead, who grew up not to be a king, but a rabbi, a servant of the poor, not of the royal, and ultimately a martyr. During Jesus' time, many groups were waiting for the coming of a Messiah who would usher in the end of history, the end of the world, where good and evil would be separated like wheat from the chaff, and the realm of God then be inaugurated either on heaven, from heaven, on, either on earth or in heaven. Okay. But that isn't the way it happened 2,000 years ago. And it's probably not going to happen that way now. Not in any way that we are expecting it, at least. That's what Forrest Church said. Well, a lot of Christians are persisting in waiting expectantly for something that they're calling the second coming of Christ. I wonder what that will be. Some have said that the second coming of Christ is only going to be coming in the many, in the we, not in the one. Henry David Thoreau encouraged us to keep awake, not be fooled. Wait with an infinite expectation of the dawn. I like that image. I like it better than the second coming in a way. Wait with an infinite expectation of the dawn. Well, it's no wonder that us humans want some kind of escape route. We know all too well the seemingly overwhelming challenges that come on earth time after time, and that come into our lives time after time. We know all the values of being able to patiently wait out the bad times, the times when our relationships are floundering, the times when we're struggling with our personal demons, those arid times, those dark nights of the soul. Well, Simone Weil says, wait patiently in expectation, because it is the foundation of spiritual life. What call is coming to you right now? What is the thing that you're having to wait patiently through? What have you been on the verge of maybe despairing about? Just think about that for a moment. There's a call coming to you through whatever is happening to you, exactly what's happening to you. And I've asked Bianca to come and read a poem to us, another David Whyte poem that is about this waiting process and this calling that's coming to us, and then the song after that.
Everything is waiting for you. Your great mistake is to act the dramas. Imagine if you were alone, a detective, as if life were a progressive and cunning crime with no witness to the tiny hidden transgressions. To feel abandoned is to deny the intimacy of your surroundings. Surely even you at times have felt the grand array, the swelling presence, and the chorus crowding out your solo voice. You must note the way the soap dish enables you, or the window latch grants you freedom. Alertness is the hidden discipline of familiarity. The stairs are your mentor of things to come. The doors have always been there to frighten you and invite you. And the tiny speaker in the phone is your dream ladder to divinity. Put down the weight of your aloneness and ease into the conversation. The kettle is singing, even as it pours you a drink. The cooking pots have left their arrogant aloofness and seen the good in you at last. All the bird-sand creatures of the world are unutterably themselves. Everything is waiting for you.
So we heard these words before, earlier in the service, words from Rumi. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Come, come, whoever you are. This isn't a caravan of despair. And I love these words. It doesn't matter if you've broken your vows 1,000 times before, and yet again, come, and yet again, come. And this music is by Shimshai, who set these wonderful words to music. So please sing along. It repeats, and it's simply those words. So I'd love to have you sing with me.
This isn't a caravan
Now turn to somebody next to you and say, I'm glad you've come again. I'm glad you've come again.
Glad you come again. Always forever. Yeah. My sister. Spiritual sister.
So Rumi, who wrote that song, was a mystic, and Simone Weil was a mystic. Perhaps we are all mystics that are sitting here because we hear these inklings, like the David White poem says, we hear these inklings of callings in the strangest places, and we know in certain moments that things are speaking to us, and that we are being called to something, that we're not just inert matter, that we are enlivened by spirit, and that we have callings upon our lives, every one of us. No matter what we've been through so far, no matter how old or how young we are, we have some calling of magnificence that is upon us, like Nelson Mandela said. In one way or another, every prophet and mystic tends to agree that if anywhere is where God is experienced, it's in the waiting. It's in the waiting. We tend to think that waiting sucks. You know, how many people like to wait in a line? Don't we usually look for the shortest line? And nowadays, with the technology the way it is, I mean, we don't even like to wait to listen to a voice message. We just want to have a text message and get it over with. So we are really quite a culture of not wanting to wait. We think that waiting is impotent. You know, that waiting is no good, that there's nothing in it to be considered. But in order to understand Simone and her idea here that the center of spirituality is in the waiting, we've got to know a little bit more about her life. She was born over 100 years ago, February 3rd, 1909, and she died only 34 years later. She was a brilliant and intense person. Some people even said a little bit weird. One of the biographers said that they interviewed some people that went to school with her, and they said that they sometimes would avoid her in the hallways because she'd always have something weird to ask them about. You know, like maybe she'd ask them, "What are you waiting for?" Anyway, so she was an odd person. When she was 3, it said that she was given a beautiful ring by a cousin of hers for her birthday, and she gave it right back, and she said, "I don't like luxury." At age 3. And then at age 5, this is really amazing for a kid, she was given a beautiful sugary treat, and she said, "I just found out the other day that the French soldiers at the front don't have any sugar, so I'm not going to eat sugar anymore." She would continue to fast in solidarity at various times throughout her life. Her brother Andrew, her older brother, became one of the most famous philosopher-mathematicians of Europe, Andrew Weil. If any of you have studied philosophy in college, you've heard of him. So she felt really diminished in his presence. He was her older brother, for one thing, but she really suffered low self-esteem in his presence. But you know, she was no slouch. By her teens, she was already mastering several languages, and in her early 20s, she began teaching at a philosophy high school. During college times, she got very politically involved in the workers' movement. She wrote tracts and marched in demonstrations and advocated for the workers of her day. When she was 25, she left her teaching position and took a job, guess what, in the factory, doing heavy labor. She wanted to be in solidarity with the struggling workers in post-World War I France. Well, she was sickly and struggled with tremendous migraine headaches. when she worked in the factories, but she was very dedicated. When she was 27, she moved to Spain to join the anarchists in the Spanish Civil War. And there she was put in kitchen duty in the camps. But there was a big accident and boiling oil spilled on her and severely burned her. And so she was allowed to go to Italy, into the country, to a healing center and recover. And there she found that the music and the culture brought her great joy. And she was able to visit the place where St. Francis of Assisi was born. And while she was there, it was what she says was her first really profound mystical experience. She felt like a visage of Jesus came right to her, and she was a Jewish girl. I mean, she didn't have it in mind that she was going to see Jesus. She wrote to a friend of hers back in France, a Catholic priest named Father Perrin, and she wrote a lot of her things that became her writings later were letters to him. And she wrote to him and she said, "Something stronger than I has compelled me for the first time in my life to go down on my knees." And then she wrote him about that poem by George Herbert, that poem, Love. She said, "I think I'm being called by the love of whoever this Jesus was to understand something about my life. Love took my hand and smiling did reply, 'You must sit down and taste my meat.' So I did sit and eat," she wrote to Father Perrin. Well, soon was to come the German occupation of France, and there was mounting pressure on the Jews as the Nazis encroached. So Simone and her family were able to escape to New York in 1942. But as her biographer, Leslie Fiedler, put it, America provided us a safe place, yes, but it became intolerable to her. Simply to be in so secure a land was, no matter how one tried to live, to enjoy what most men could not attain, so I must leave, she said. She was longing to be with the French resistance, so she finally succeeded in getting assigned to the office of the Free French in London, and she flew over there. And she showed her compassion for the suffering of the Europeans by refusing to eat more food than the official ration of occupied French people. So her health, fragile since childhood, continued to deteriorate. The years of self-deprivation and her way of identifying with the poor by not eating had made her weak and prone to illnesses, and so she came down with tuberculosis. But rather than lamenting her condition, she considered her suffering to be necessary, a step in her quest for truth. By renouncing the I, she believed she was making room in her soul for God, the ultimate truth, she said. So she collapsed one day at work in 1943 and was taken to the hospital and was in the end stages of tuberculosis, and they said starvation. And she died in 1943. In the last years of her life in particular, Simone's drive to find comfort in God led her to describing God as absent, but that wasn't a bad thing. She said, "God gave me being in order that I should give it back to him. He who gives us our being loves in us the acceptance of not being." He who gives us our being loves in us the acceptance of not being. So this is something like John the Baptist before her was saying, something like, I must decrease, that God can increase. So this is what she was grappling with. After her death, her writings were published, and now it's said that she is one of the most brilliant minds of the 20th century. But nobody said that to her while she was alive. In hearing all of this, you can understand how her mysticism grew out of her experience of not having, of suffering. Not only was she a Jew living in the midst of Nazi persecution, but she was one who worked and fought in solidarity with the resistance that was failing, And she was also someone who was racked with these migraine headaches all of her life. So her understanding of waiting on God isn't exactly passive, is it? She was one who engaged in life so fully, even though there were all these obstacles. She probably lived more fully than a lot of persons do in her 34 years, people who live twice as long. So for Simone, waiting upon God means to give one's full attention to love, to whatever we imagine that God might be, even if you can't see God anywhere in the circumstances. So she says this is the discipline of waiting. It's an especially powerful act. She said this ability to wait comes from recognizing with full humility that we are finite, that we are limited in our understanding, that we don't get it all. And it comes from a place of honesty and recognition of our own weakness in the midst of a world that is also scarred and broken. So from this familiarity with suffering, she wrote, "It is not for us to seek or even to believe in God. We have only to refuse to believe in everything that is not God." Isn't that interesting? It's not for us to seek to believe in God, but we just have to not believe in everything that is not God. I think that's really good for our culture nowadays. She says this refusal does not presuppose belief. It's enough to recognize that all the goods of this world, past, present, and future, real or imaginary, are all finite and limited, and radically incapable of satisfying the desire which burns perpetually within us for an infinite, perfect good. It's not a matter of self-questioning or searching and searching for God, she says, but what we do have to persist in is the refusal to be satisfied with anything less. And one day or another, the fullness of our dreams will come to us. Wow. A Dutch theologian, Henry Nouwen, who also came through Nazi Germany, he said, "The spiritual life is a life in which we wait, actively present to the moment, and trusting that new things will happen to us. New things, far beyond our own imagination, fantasy, or prediction." So Simone Weil's waiting patiently for something is similar to this Henry Nouwen's waiting actively present to the moment. St. Benedict said, this waiting is like listening with the ear of your heart. So I love that song that we sang about the way of the heart. And that Simone, heard this song, probably singing in her mind in some way as she heard the poem of George Herbert about this kind of love. There's something that's always there in any situation speaking to your heart. Is that true? Have you felt that? There's a wonderful mystic sister that's alive nowadays in New Mexico, and I knew her when I lived there. Her name is Joan Chittister. Have any of you heard of her? She's written some really great books too, and she says, we are to see change and challenge in life as God's voice speaking in our ear. We are to see change and challenge in our life as God's voice speaking in our ear. And so we're to be attentive to what's happening to us, even the most difficult things, as if it is really Spirit speaking to us. But Nouwen said, more important than that, Henry Nouwen said, you will recall that the spiritual life is a life in which we wait, actively present to the moment, and trusting that new things will happen to us. So we've got to be doing something, actively present in the moment. This reminds me of Buddhist teachings, that we have got to be actively doing something with our minds so that we can remain present in the moment. We've got to not get distracted by all those things that are not God, by all those voices and all those fears and all those things that do pour in upon us, especially when we're in hard times. The voices of shame and of self-blame and blaming others, all of those voices are the things that we've got to be moving away from and being actively present to the moment. We are to see change and challenge in life as God's voice in our ears. Well, that's what Simone did. And as the world changed all around her, she said we've got to look harder for it and listen more closely. Lots of times when we're in difficult situations, we struggle to take control of our lives. When we wish something would happen or not happen, we try to make it happen. We move ahead and we say, well, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that to make this change. What we are trying to do is control the future, but perhaps we're not listening with the ears of our heart. Perhaps we're not really being open to hearing the still small voice of God right in the moment. Simone Weil's writings are quite radical. When I told a few people this week that I was going to speak about her, they said, whoa, that should be intense. They're really quite radical. But she is at her most eloquent when she's speaking of what it is that we truly long for and how we can only arrive at the deepest level of our earthly existence when we let go of our willful striving and start paying attention, looking upward, she said, waiting for God to come to us in grace in the current circumstances. So Simone believed that the beauty we continually search for in the created world and in our relationships with other human beings is really this longing that's in all of us for God to become tangible. You get what I'm saying? We all have this longing and we think it's for other things. And she says it's really for God to become tangible. So she believed that even those who deny this sacredness of this longing that we have are never going to be satisfied with anything less. I think that's a lot of what's happening in our culture right now, the grasping for so many things and not being satisfied. She said the longing to love the beauty of the world and a human being is essentially the longing for the incarnation. It's mistaken if one thinks it's anything else. The incarnation of spirit completely in matter is what alone can satisfy our deepest longings. That's what we're longing for in each person that we meet. We're longing for the incarnation of the divine in that person. Well, what may be most admirable and challenging about Simone is that she had this ability to forgo many of the assurances that most of us demand. This is a really important thing to understand about her, that she was content at age 3 to give up the shiny ring. She was content to live without certainty. She sought God in the darkness of the culture in which she lived in, and she claimed nothing for herself. Despite her mystical encounters with Jesus, for example, she refused to be baptized in the Catholic Church, which could have given her some protection and cover. She could have hid in the Catholic Church, but she didn't want to do that. She stayed a Jew in those Nazi times, and she said, I can't join the church because of my love for those things which exist outside of Christianity. So she's therefore often nowadays called the patron saint of outsiders. She stuck with it even when there was a great cost, her love for things outside of the church that weren't accepted in the church. For Simone, it was enough to gaze toward the empty place left by a God who was always just out of sight. It was enough for her to gaze at the empty place left by a God who was always just out of sight. Attention animated by desire is the whole foundation of religious practice, she says. So where do you put your attention? She put her attention on the God who was out of sight. She wasn't trying to grasp onto and have something that she could so count on and have it be so real right now. To Simone, what mattered was not finding or even seeking God, but simply waiting with open eyes and looking into the void. She discovered the sustaining power of keeping on when God seems totally absent. So the sense of God's absence in our lives often comes from circumstances and our experiences. We too can experience this sense of God's absence in our lives. Why isn't God helping me with this? I know I've got things going on in my life like that. Do you? Maybe you're blessed to not have them in your direct personal life, but maybe in somebody's life that you know, you look at it, the circumstance, and you think, where is God? Why is God not helping with this? Why aren't prayers being answered? So Simone's theology revolves around the words affliction and necessity. Affliction and necessity. And I remember when I first read her writing, it sounds like it wouldn't be comforting, but it was very comforting to me that she built her theology around these words, affliction and necessity. So she said, affliction makes God appear to be absent for a time, more absent than a dead man, more absent than light in the utter darkness of a prison cell. A kind of horror submerges the whole soul when you're being afflicted. During this absence, there's nothing to love. And what is terrible is that if in this darkness the soul ceases to love, God's absence becomes final. The soul has to go on loving in the emptiness, or at least to go on wanting to love, though it may only be with an infinitesimally small part of oneself. You've got to keep loving. Then one day God will come to show God's self to your soul and to reveal the beauty of the world to you once again. But if your soul stops loving, it falls, even in this life, into something almost equivalent to hell. Do you know anybody whose soul stopped loving and they fell? That's where hell exists. You know, we in Unity say that we don't believe in hell. But when a person falls from loving and falls from believing in love in difficult circumstances, it's when we can experience the anxieties of hellishness. This time of the sense of God's absence has come to be known as the dark night of the soul, but that's why the writings about the dark night of the soul are so important, the spiritual writings, because they're telling us how to make it through the dark nights of the soul, God's absence. What then do we do to make it through the dark night of the soul? Well, first of all, don't be afraid of the silence. The dark night is one of the ways that God brings everything inside of us to a hush. Simone says when we're in situations where we really feel afflicted, that's when God lovingly draws us in to God's self. We're tempted in those kind of moments to get really critical of things outside of us. When we're in our dark night of the soul, we're tempted to say, I'm not going to church anymore because she's just a boring speaker. Or I don't like that music anymore. Or I'm not going to get together with family because, negative things always happen. So in the dark night of the soul, we're tempted to get negative. And she says that's a big mistake, a serious mistake. Recognize the dark night for what it is, she says. Be grateful that God is lovingly drawing you away from every distraction so that you can see godness or goodness more clearly. God's act of withdrawal is so that the world can exist. God's act of withdrawal is so that the world can exist. Because God is simultaneously relinquishing divine control and handing over events to the impersonal chain of necessity as the systems of the world runs itself. Do you get this? She's talking about karma. We talk about this in Buddhism too, that the chain of karma, or cause and effect, goes on and on. She says that the absence of God from ordering the world is not disastrous. She insists it is how God is with us. Everything that we suffer, God suffers too. For that is the effect produced by necessity, the free play of which God refrains from violating. This is deep stuff. But are you with me about this? So when people ask you, what about all the suffering in the world? That's a common question that comes up. I don't believe in God because of all the suffering in the world. Well, this is Simone's answer. No, God steps back, appears absent, so that the laws of cause and effect can go on, so that we can learn, so that we can play, do what we're doing, and get to feel the longing, the sacred longing in our souls for the truth and for what will, going beyond all the things that do not satisfy us. So practically speaking, she says there's 6 things that we need to do to get ourselves through the dark night of the soul. 1, realize that nobody may understand you. Right? And accept it. Maybe God hasn't led them to have this particular experience that you're having, so they might not understand you. Number 2, don't expect to just snap out of it. Don't expect to just snap out of the dark night of the soul. You've got to trust that your higher consciousness is what brought you into this incarnation and will also eventually lift the veil. Number 3, seek out an ally. Seek good counsel, a spiritual guide. Don't be in it alone. Number 4, go about the tasks of your life. Don't withdraw from your daily life. Number 5, hold on to your experience of the presence of God, of the love of God, like a shipwreck victim holding on to a piece of driftwood. Don't let go of that knowing of the love of God no matter what. And the last one, continue to call on the divine faithfully until you do eventually receive afresh the revelations of God's presence. Know that God has promised never to leave you or forsake you. So, are the difficulties of life really to be attributed to divine love? What do you think? Simone says yes. The difficulties of life, are they to be attributed to divine love? Simone says yes. She says we've got to tenderly love the harshness of the necessity that comes upon us, because it's like a coin with 2 faces. The one turns towards us being dominated and oppressed, and the other turns toward God and us being obedient to love. So we've got to embrace whatever happens to us, even if it offers us the roughest surface and the roughness cuts into it. Any lover is glad to clasp tightly some object belonging to an absent loved one, even to the point where it cuts into the flesh. We know that this universe is an object belonging to God, she says. We ought to thank God from the depths of our hearts for whatever necessity comes upon us. Isn't that pretty radical? So in conclusion, if Simone was here with us today, she might be coming up to you in maybe a kind of an irritating way and saying, so what are you waiting for? Well, it's got 2 sides to that question, two sides to the coin, you know. What are you waiting for in your life? Are you in this waiting period that's very hard for you? In other words, waiting upon that. Or what are you waiting for in the sense of you are a great being and you are here to love. What are you waiting for? She says, we don't walk vertically here. We can only turn our eyes toward God. We do not have to search for God. We only have to change the direction in which we are looking. So in any particular moment, no matter what hard lessons are going on, you can't always get what you want, like the Rolling Stones song says. But on the other hand, Simone says, if you hang on to the love, you might just find that you're getting what you need. So my blessing prayer for us is that we may each discover the patience to wait expectantly for what must be in the days of our lives, and that we may be awake and ready to accept this greater love whenever it comes. May we find our way through the inevitable cold and dark days that do come to us and into the heart of the promise and hope, which is the Advent season. And may we be prepared to be grateful for what we have, especially when it's not what we wanted, but what we need. Great Spirit, give us this attitude of waiting patiently for you to come. So may it be. Thanks for listening to me about that. And I really appreciate getting to talk about Simone. And we'll take the offering now. As you're giving the offering, be gathering for another song. Thank you for giving generously to keep our place going here. And Jay, do you have an announcement?
Well, you're going to see some envelopes in the offering, and we have a matching $5,000 grant. If we can meet that, then we'll get an extra $5,000. So if you want to support Norma's sabbatical come February, take an envelope and write a check separately just saying for Norma's launch.
Yeah, I mean, what it does is it helps sustain everything that's going on here, and it helps me to get my salary while I'm gone, so that I can go. There's no envelopes in there?
Is there a deadline on
And I
that,
don't
that
know.
matching?
The end of the year.
End of the year, okay, so
31st.
this month.
And I have an exciting piece of news on that I got a call this week, and we sent out that letter via email, which I think you probably all got. If you didn't, make sure you're on the email list, because it means you might not be on our email list, but we sent out a beautiful letter explaining what we're doing right now and how we're heading toward, me having this rest, and then toward some wonderful new branding of ourselves and new changes that will take, advertising money and things like that. So that letter went out, and the day after it went out, I got a call from someone who comes to Unity sometimes, but who's done the Journey to Completion many times, and he said, I'd like to give $2,000 towards the matching grant. So, yay. Keep praying, and
So
let's
that's
keep it moving.
$2,710 so
It's come
far.
so far. Isn't that great?
We can
And
do
it's
it.
happening.
We can do it.
Yeah. Is this the last song?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well, we'll wait just a minute then, yes. So, as we're doing the offering, I said I wanted to say a little bit more to you that, this is an important week on planet Earth to be talking about all the things that Simone brought forth because of Nelson Mandela's passing. And I hope that you got to watch it on TV a little bit or watch it on the internet, but you can still look up on the internet Nelson Mandela's dying live coverage and watch the celebrations that are going on all over South Africa. And they interviewed young people, white and black together, and tears rolling down their cheeks, and they arm around each other, a white guy saying with a black guy, I would never have been able to be friends with him if it weren't for Nelson Mandela. It brought together the people of that country, the vision that he had. So there are visions in your heart that the still small voice of God has been speaking to you all your life. And I'm sure that many times in those 27 years of waiting in prison that Nelson felt like his visions were never going to come true. And yet somehow he kept a hold like that, hanging on to the log in the flood of love. And in the final statements about his life by the President of South Africa, he said that this man, because he loved so much and was able to forgive all the torture and everything that happened to him, that is what turned around the whole nation and their mindset, both on the black side and the white side, because there was a lot of anger and animosity on both sides, and he held that vision of forgiveness, total forgiveness and reconciliation, and it happened. And Richard told me when I came in here this morning that today is the day that John Lennon was shot and killed. So that's another very significant moment in our history, of someone who held the visions that we are holding and still living through, on through to. So we've got work to do together. And I'm so thankful to have you and to have this container, right, of total encouragement for each one of us. It's a very valuable container to me to have you, to know that whatever I go through in my life, that I am being held by you in such love and encouraged and believed in. and I give that back to you, and you give it to one another. So we've got something very valuable here, and I'm so thankful that we can, keep it going and keep telling others about it. So on that note, let's bless our offering. So rub your hands together and feel the chi energy, the life energy, and you say, divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. Thank you, everyone. So it is. And so we're going to arise and go into our circle. And we might have to make the circle maybe through the chairs right here instead of all the way back today. And I love it that Heather thought to do this final song, but this is the song that they sing all over South Africa. And I got to see it on the news. People all over South Africa are singing this song. We're marching in the light of God. We're marching on in the light of God, and nothing can stop us. And it's got African words to it, too.
Yeah, you may know it, many of you. If you know the harmony part, please feel free to add that. But Siyahamba kukanyeni kunkos, Siyahamba kukanyeni kunkos, Siyahamba kukanyeni kunkos, Siyahamba kukanyeni kunkos. That's pretty much it. And then we'll sing some English words as well, and we'll also tie in part of the service words for that. We are waiting on all that is God. We are waiting on all that is God. So be listening for that, and let's sing together.
Siyahamba kukanyeni
we get ready to go out into the beautiful snowy day, know that this winter time is upon us, and whatever happens of challenging things, that we are waiting to see what God is going to bring forth from that, to see what God is going to manifest in our lives. So let's talk to one another about that and be allies for one another and keep encouraging one another to wait, because we are going to see amazing things come all the way through.